My name is Grace Anaver, and I'm from Quinhagak, Alaska. The sea coarse grass from back home, we call it taperrnaq. Taperrnaq is a name for sea coarse grass. It's plentiful on at our beach. We use for many uses, for grass handbag, basket weaving, mats, some smaller arts and crafts. It's one of the things that our ancestors had always used. It's available. It's a good fiber, and they use it. They even use it for hand towel. They split it, make it soft, and then that's what they use to wipe their hands with. The grass bag, depending on the size, I use at home in Yup'ik Issran. And then there might be a different form of saying it. There are some were made for blackfish, dry fish, or storing your goods. I use mine when I gather sea coarse grass or gathering edible greens. I had forgot about bringing a shopping bag or a handbag with me. And it was quite a ways to go back home, and, gas-wise, and, the bumps on the trail. I didn't want to go back. So I sat on at the beach. This was at the back home in Quinhagak. I went down to pick first greens, and I looked in all my pockets, my backpack. There was no backpack, but I checked and there was nothing. So I sat on the sea coarse grass, and then I started pulling, because they're easy to pull, because of this in the springtime. So I picked enough, and then I knew I had learned how to make the handbag you use to store your Dolly Varden fish. I started it by tying together the bottom. As you go, you twist. The first circular at the beginning is small. You have about 4 or 5 stitches, and then it grows. You add more, and it gets wider. And this was the handbag I made to store my greens that day. Not very wide, but as you fill it, it stretches. You can stretch it. So I finished it maybe in 15 minutes, and it was about almost 20 inches long, and the width was about a basketball size on the bottom. It got full, so I sat down again, and I made another one. A lady came over and asked what I was doing. I told her I had forgotten to bring a bag, and she offered me a plastic bag and said, "Oh, this is this is my." I was experimenting to see how long it would take to make one, and I finished it. I finished another one, so I got up and gathered more. I filled up 2, and I was able to share the other handbag with my neighbor. And yeah, we ate, and it was like one meal serving, for family of 5, for one bag, and then another bag was like family of 5 serving. It was good. It's fun.
Nice.
Learning about harvesting grass is simple. My mother had always done it. My mother and my older sister were basket weavers. To pick your sea coarse grass, when they changed color in the fall time was when my mother would pick them. They would leave in the morning, and whether it's raining or not. I remember the time when my mom had to go while it was raining, because when it's rainy season in the fall, and we had guests from ladies from across the bay from Qanirtuuq, and it took them all day, because you pull the grass one blade at a time. If it rains too much, then your grass the grass will have like moldy form, dots on them, and you want your grass to be free of any blemish or black dots on it. I always go down to the beach to pick the sea coarse grass when I had, after the first frost and the second frost is when they're changing color and the tip is already tanned and the bottom might still be green. That's okay to pick. That one would be okay to pick because it'll turn color later as you hang it in your house to dry or while it's out bleaching for the day. What I like to pick are the ones that have purple bottom. The roots are purple because they're more, they're stronger than the other sea coarse grass. The rest of the sea coarse grass is fine, but what they prefer today, because they seem to be more paler as they change color from green to yellow, and then later on they'll turn very pale. The grass you pick, you bring home, then you braid it before you hang it to dry. It's the twist form that you make 2 rows of that. You run that twist form of braid 2 times so when you hang it, the grass won't get loose or spiral and fall. You hang it to dry in your house, or if you have a shed, you can dry it there too if it's not too damp out. It takes like 5 to 6 days to dry in your house, and you want it completely dry. After it's dry, my mother used to hang it out on the cloth line where we hang our clothes on a sunny day to bleach it, for more bleaching. But she would bring it back in the house and not leave it out overnight. Otherwise, it would get damp. It's therapeutic, hands-on work is always therapeutic. It's fun. It's when you learn to enjoy it. It's every season. It's your body tells you it's time to go and do it, and you get it. It's satisfying. It is sometimes, at times, it's time-consuming. It's in the winter when it's all done and the grass, you can't pick the grass anymore. You'll be glad, you'll be happy you have some at home to share and to, for use. Last year's grass, this was in 2018, fall time it rains constantly. So the grass we picked, it was not very many, was, in good grade color. But I noticed from that, in the spring, from the last year's sea coarse grass that had died and they're white by springtime, that didn't happen because they were all flat and they were not closed. They were not dry. They had had too much rain on them, 2018. And in the spring, I went to see them because before that, years before that, you could sit at the beach and gather grass, and it was so pale because it was under the snow. But last year we had constant rain and snowless winter, and the blade of grass was open and flat, flat on the ground, and it wasn't standing anymore, and it was not good to pick. They were not, they were rotten, Sometimes you pick them while they're green, but what you cut, you have to lay it flat among the grass and not in one pile. You have to spread them out. I laid mine on top of a sled that was turned over for the summer. I let them flat there, but I had to watch them. If it's damp there's dew on the top, and I flip it over, and then I leave it uncovered. But if I knew it were to rain, I'll cover it with plastic, and then right after the rain is past, I'll open it again and then shift them. You have to keep shifting them, and then those I remember turned really good. No blemish, no dots. They were all pure. No mildew. To turn the right color, it takes about 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the sun, how many times in a week it had rained. It depends on your how much time you spend on it. You flip it in the morning. You can flip it in the evening again. Turn them over, and in the evenings I would cover it. Doing my first green grass, coarse grass, and took care of it right in front of my house, outside front of my door. It was, within reach. I can do it every morning as I leave. Turn it over the second time around in the evening. That was my first one, and they turned out really nice. And the good color, the longer they stayed out, the lighter the color. You braid it, and then you hang it in the house to dry. All the moisture or dampness. To store it, it has to be all free of moisture. You can feel it's dry. They might feel a little waxy. Wax is good. They have natural wax, or oil. It's not oil, it's waxy. They feel waxy on your hands if you run through it. The green grass you had frozen in your freezer, take it out, you braid it, and then hang it outside. You can even hang it during winter. Don't even bother to bring it in your house. It'll, the elements, the weather will do that for you. And when it's cold out, it'll change color, but you have to leave it outdoors, not in the house to dry. If I were to leave it out, I have to watch. When it rains, I want to bring it back in, not in the house, but maybe in the shed or in the porch, and then bring it back out to give it more weather. The weather will do it for you to change the colors. You store the bundle. An elderly lady once told me she would rather store it in her house in the room temperature. My mother had always stored hers in the attic, or in the fall, or in the porch, but you have to keep it away from the mice. The mice can climb. The porch has to be, or your storage outside behind your house. It has to be mouse-free, and the plastic where you store them would be airtight at all times. Stored in a tote, it's airtight, and never up of on the shelf, but always on the floor where it would stay cooler. You don't want your grass to be very dry. It becomes brittle and breaks on the tip or on the bottom. The tip is where it breaks the most. All of the grass you keep, you want to store upright, always upright. We still have some at home, and they last like 15 or more years if you keep them safe from moisture and too dry. Soak and soften the grass before you dye it. That way it absorbs the color evenly on the blade of grass. 3-4 hours at the most, it'll turns to soften, and I never use hot water when I soak them. You have to do a gentle start, and when you soften your sea coarse grass. If I don't want to soak it in the tub, I let it outdoor. If it's raining, I put it where the where we catch our rain. Leave it there for like 4 or 5 hours, but you still have to turn it so the inside. You don't want to leave it in one clump. You spread it, and then, or you can. I soak mine in the rain and when the snow is melting, when the weather warms up. I leave it there, and works the same way. When you're going to dye grass, I think you want rich color. You just use about one length of the braid you made to hang to dry them outside or in your house too. That's about, it'll take to cover from one packet of store-bought red dye. And to dye it, I have a long pan I use for roasting, and it's commercial size. It's long. You fill it with hot boiling water, simmer, not rolling boil, but it already, if it turns boiling, you put it on low, simmer it, and your mixture is already stirred. Make sure you stir it well. It has to be already dissolved and not rolling boil. It's a simmer. Actually, you boil the sea coarse grass, it won't spoil it. You do that to change the color you like, and it works. The red dye works. You fold it over, move the top to the bottom and bottom to the top. You keep moving it, then you simmer it for about 15-20 minutes or more, and then you take it out. Once you take it out, you put it in your utility tub, run it through the cold water. When you pull it out, there's plastic underneath to keep putting stain on your floor. And then I can use old towels to catch the drips, and then we let it sit, turn it over again, get all the excess water out. Then you braid it. You braid the same way you did with the raw sea coarse grass you had just picked from the same way. And then you hang it in the room temperature to dry for about 4 or 5 days. And then you tie them. You use your hand for a measure. Tie those, and you have your colors. Actually using it prepare to use it for your handbag, sea coarse grass, or the grass basket. You have to split it and soak it again in water, wrap it with a towel, and you keep it soft. You can put it in the freezer for overnight to use the next day, or when you have time, take it back out and use it again. It keeps freezing will keep it safe. Getting your sea coarse grass ready, preparing it for handbag. You use the longest ones. The longer the better, because you don't want to, stop while you're twisting your grass. Before you begin, you prepare it ahead of time. Some split it in half if they are too wide. Split the blade of grass in two, but take the middle hard part off. You don't want that, because later on your handbag grass will dry up and then want to break, like a wood stick. When you split it, never start from the top or it'll break off. I start from the bottom where it's wider and use needle, or you can use your fingernails to split that. The sea coarse grass, you wet and get ready to do that. You don't have to do wet all your grass at the same time. But you can do like half of them, begin with half of those by soaking them in the water for 3 hours. Once it's softened and ready to, for twisting, it needs to be very soft, but not over, if you don't want to leave it in the water for more than 5 hours or 4 hours soaking. You wrap it in the towel and take some of the moisture out before you freeze it. Then to store it in the freezer for next day use, wrap it in a plastic bag, airtight, take all the air out, make sure there are no holes. You leave it in your freezer overnight for next day's use. It's just a form of twisting. When you make the hand grass bag, both hands have to be twisting. When you were growing up, you were braiding. That's just what it is. If your hands are good, anybody can try it. At beginning, when you have your very first one, you may think you can't do this because when you first start, it will never look like a satisfying finish. But that's your start. That's how it always is. To finish one, it would take you about, if you're a beginner, about 2-3 days, depending on the time you spend on it. And your first one is always you get tired from it easy because you're learning how to hold it. Your hands have to learn how to coordinate with how much tightness you want on the twists you make, and the size of the bag you're making. It's always good to begin on the smaller size, but is better for beginners. And as you get used to it, you can go to a larger one next. And one thing leads to another. You want to do a doormat, you want to do a floor mat. Yeah. Grass, coarse grass, you can make into anything you put your mind to. Handbags, I'm into that for now, and I'd like to do a very colorful one next time because it's something new to do, something challenging. Everybody has an art in them. It's good for the soul. It's good for the mind. It's good for handbags are wonderful. It is time consuming, but then it's fun and enjoyable art in itself, and it's rewarding.